Hey everybody, Basil here with another video tutorial. I know how much you guys love these things. This week I wanted to touch base on Zoom and some of the changes that we're making. So last week we noticed a bunch of students weren't able to join Zoom meetings, and they weren't able to join for two main reasons. The first reason was a password embedded link was used in their Canvas course, and then the password was changed for that meeting after the fact. When that happens, that original link is no longer valid to store that password. And so students were clicking on that, not knowing what password to put in. The password that they had on that link was not working. The second thing that we saw was a few staff members were clicking on a checkbox that said only authenticated users can join the meeting. Although that does sound like it's a good thing, it's actually a bad thing. It stops our students from joining meetings because our students don't actually have Zoom accounts, and so there's no way for them to authenticate. They're all joining as guests. So what we ended up doing as a result of that to kind of ease things for students and staff, we started removing some of the restrictions that enforced these settings. During this week, however, we kind of slowly turned those restrictions back on. And at this point, we're ready to go for next week with the full restrictions set up, basically saying, every meeting has to have a password in it, and you can no longer check that checkbox that says, only authenticated users can join. So I wanted to put together this quick video to show you exactly what you can do to make sure that your password links are up to date and to make sure that checkbox is not checked. Okay, so let's say we're going to go into our course here and just update our password link to make sure that it's working. Let's say I had some students tell me that the password wasn't working for my morning meeting or for my afternoon meeting or for my second period class, whichever one it might be. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to scroll down till I get to my link. In this class, in this example here, which I stole from another class, it looks like it's just a picture. So I'm going to click on that picture. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm using the right link. So if I have a recurring meeting, a personal meeting room that I'm using, whatever it might be, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the right link is in here in Canvas. So to do that, I'm going to go to my Google account, and then I'll go to Zoom right here. And then I'll click on Meetings. And for me, I'm going to use my personal meeting room. And in my personal meeting room, I'm going to see a bunch of things here. My meeting ID, passcode is enabled. And then I'm also going to see my join URL. And that's going to include my meeting ID right here. And it's also going to say PWD equals, and then like a bunch of gibberish, which is actually the actual passcode that you have. It's just encrypted, so you can't see it. And so I'm going to copy this entire URL, go back to my course with my link selected, click on link to URL, and I'm going to paste this new link in there. And I'm going to make sure that it's got the right things here. It's got my meeting ID, and it's got password equals a bunch of stuff here. I'm going to say update link, and I'm going to say save. And that will now fix any broken links with my Zoom meetings from last week. A good tip is if you do think that there might be some issues with passcodes, make sure you have your passcode. You can actually include that as a backup inside of your Canvas course. Some teachers have already started doing this. Obviously, this teacher did the same thing. You can use that as a backup plan. So should families be prompted to enter a passcode, maybe the link is still broken somehow or in some other place we didn't see, they can then find that password easily on their Canvas course. Okay, let's say I was one of those teachers whose classes, when students attempted to join that Zoom session, they were prompted saying that they had an invalid login or an invalid email account to join that Zoom meeting. That is an easy fix. So when we started seeing a bunch of those pop up last week, the IT team went ahead and disabled that option across the board for all Zoom accounts. But it's still possible that you may have that still checked on, and I want to show you quickly how to turn that off. So I'm back in my Zoom account. I'm going to go back to meetings. Let's say I link my students to my personal meeting room in my Canvas course. I'm going to go to my personal meeting room. I'm going to click on Edit. And then what I want to double check is I want to double check that only authenticated users can join is not checked. I want that not to be checked. If you can see right here, this is actually locked. So this is when we turn that on. We locked this feature out. We wanted to make sure that no future meetings would have this setting turned on. It is, however, possible that any existing meetings that were created or edited may have that setting still turned on. And so we're going to require you guys to just go through, double check, make sure that's unchecked. If you have reports of students telling you, hey, I can't join, it's telling me I have an invalid login, this is the first thing to check to just see if only authenticated users is selected. We do not want that selected. I want to repeat that again. We do not want only authenticated users can join checked. Authenticated users means that those students would have to have Zoom accounts. We do not provide them Zoom accounts. They join as guests. If you check that on, those students are going to try to log in to Zoom accounts that they don't have, and so it'll tell them that they have an invalid address. So it's very simple. You make sure that's unchecked. You go ahead and click Save, and then that should be it. As long as you don't update the passcode, your meeting link will not have to change. So that's a good thing to remember. If I just uncheck that box, I didn't change the passcode, I didn't change anything else, this meeting link that shows my meeting ID and then the password equals all of my encrypted password information, that's not going to change. So that can remain on your Canvas course. I don't need to update that on my Canvas course, and that'll start working for your students. So just a quick recap. If you are a teacher that suspects that last week your password enabled link wasn't working properly, you're going to go into your Canvas course, you're going to edit your page, you're going to find that link, and then you're going to update the URL with the URL that you currently have for your password enabled meeting, right? So if it's my personal meeting room, or if I have it on my recurring meetings and I have the password is enabled, and I'm going to copy this new password or this latest password enabled link and then paste that into the link inside of Canvas to make sure that my students have it for next week. Additionally, one thing to check is just to make sure that the links that you are using include that PWD equals sign string inside of the link. So if you see something like that on Canvas where PWD equals is not included in the link, then you're going to have to update it with the most up-to-date link from that meeting. We're turning on password requirements. Passwords are going to be applied to these meetings. You need to make sure that the PWD equals sign is in that URL. All you got to do is just go back to Zoom, open up the meeting, copy the link, paste it back into Canvas. That's the only thing you need to do. If you instruct your students to use the Zoom menu on the left-hand side to view meetings, then no sweat. They will have the most up-to-date meeting link. They'll click it from there, no problem. If you are embedding those links in, if you're copying and pasting them into easily clickable and navigated links that are like on these kinds of pages or maybe even on this sort of navigation table, then yeah, you're just going to have to go ahead and update those links. Now, if you go back to these links, let's say I hover over one of them, and you could see right down there in the URL that pops up that it says PWD equals blah, 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 then you're fine. That is a password-enabled link. You haven't made any changes to that meeting. You haven't changed the password. You are fine. You do not need to change that. But if you suspect that you did change the password at some point in time, or it did not have that PWD inside of there, just open up Zoom, go to that meeting, copy the link URL, and then paste it back into your Canvas course on that corresponding link. I really hope that this was helpful for you guys and not super confusing. I know how I can tend to be when I do these tutorial videos. Sometimes I can get a little ahead of myself and say a lot of different things, but the baseline is just make sure that the meeting links include that PWD equal sign in them, and that when you are in those meetings, make sure that the only authenticated users can join checkbox is unchecked. Remember, do not check that. All right. Thank you guys. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I know I am. I'm going to be busy making so many more tutorial videos for you. So like, subscribe to my channel, whatever else it is that, YouTubers say. But thanks for watching.